So Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order was announced recently, and it's coming in November. There were calls for celebrations as EA announced that there would be no microtransactions in the game, but I think we need to keep our expectations in check because it is still EA after all. I think it's the perfect time to look at some of the older Star Wars video games and see what Respawn can learn from them. Who knows? Maybe we're heading for a Star Wars video game resurgence. With Fallen Order, there's been a mostly positive reception, not because of what the game is, but because of what it isn't. EA promises no microtransactions and emphasises that this is a story-based single-player game, and that was all they needed to do. Players have been burned so badly with Battlefront 1 and 2 that just to hear EA say the right things is enough to get people excited, even if they haven't seen a trailer with any gameplay. And that's understandable. Star Wars is a juggernaut of a franchise, and there's a history of great video games that have come out of it. For there not to have even been one great single-player focused Star Wars game since Knights of the Old Republic 2 in 2005 is a real tragedy, and it's understandable that gamers would cling to any sign of this changing. I feel the same. I would love for things to take a turn, and for Star Wars to become a video game franchise with installments we truly look forward to and get excited about. As for EA and their PR this time around, I always find with these publishers, they do choose their words very carefully. I still expect content hidden in deluxe editions and season passes, along with potentially a tacked on multiplayer down the track, after the reviews hit of course. But for now, I'll be cautiously optimistic. Even if we're probably in for microtransactions one way or another, I mean, this is EA. They challenge everything, including how low they can sink. The key for a successful Star Wars game is to stay grounded and stick to the genre that's been envisioned to begin with. The Force Unleashed was a disappointment for many people, including myself, because it tried too hard to make you an unstoppable Jedi who could destroy anything in your path with a push of a button on your controller. The issue with this is when you undermine the enemies, there's no challenge or sense of accomplishment, and the whole game just becomes a total bore. Looking at, rest in peace, LucasArts, they had one of the most impressive video game resumes I've seen from a developer. They created Monkey Island, Day of the Tentacle, along with dozens upon dozens of Star Wars games, most of which were of a much higher quality than EA's Battlefront titles. The secret behind LucasArts is instead of trying to cram everything into one Star Wars game, they had a diverse range of titles. They had the Wings series of games for flight, Jedi Knight for first-person shooters, and they outsourced the IP to devs like BioWare and Obsidian for RPGs because they knew their strengths and what they could and could not handle themselves. It's a sign of a developer with great leadership, and it's no wonder they kept up such a quality output for all that time. I personally feel that the Jedi Knight series and the Knights of the Old Republic series are the high points for single-player Star Wars, so I want to look at those in detail. The Jedi Knight series technically started with what people called a Doom clone in Dark Forces 1. What made this game unique is it was one of the first shooters ever that emphasized story, which was quite innovative at the time. You step into the shoes of Kyle Katarn, an iconic Star Wars character who carries the series through Jedi Knight Dark Forces 2, Jedi Outcast, and finally, Jedi Academy. All of these games were successful commercially, but also very well received by fans for both their stories and their gameplay. That's the thing with Star Wars, it's a lucrative IP to jump into, but if you don't get it right, you really will pay for it, as EA found out with Battlefront 2. If that game hadn't have carried the Star Wars name, and had have just been, let's say, a Battlefield spin-off, would it have really copped so much backlash? Certainly not. A Star Wars video game is high risk, but potentially high reward for any developer because of the expectations that come with it. And when we have high quality games like the Jedi Knight series to compare it with, it only raises those standards. Kyle Katarn is a classic video game hero, period. And he's the sort of character Respawn will want to have taken influence from when creating Cal Kestis, the protagonist of Fallen Order and one of the last surviving Jedi in the game. Kyle's greatness and popularity come from the fact that he isn't a stereotypical hero. He has an interesting backstory, being an Imperial officer who turns to life as a mercenary after learning that the Empire are responsible for the death of his father. Throughout the games, his reputation continues to grow as he works and fights for the Rebel Alliance. The key with Kyle is that you're truly in his shoes, overcoming difficult challenges through the great level design of Dark Forces 2 through to Jedi Outcast, where he becomes confident in his strength and dedication to the light side. His character growth is immense as he goes from essentially a gun for hire to one of the most respected Jedi in the Alliance. Respawn must learn from this, that their hero is only as powerful as the challenges he has to face. If the game is trivial or focuses on giving you Force Unleashed-like powers, it will undermine Cal along with the Star Wars universe, and that will not make fans happy. Cal is a Padawan, and his story must reflect this. I want to start the game feeling like a novice, having much to learn, and only once I master the Force and my powers should I feel like a truly powerful Jedi, just like I did with Kyle Katarn. If this is genuinely a story-driven game, as EA has promised, then the gameplay must be reflective of this story as well. I want to grow as Cal, not destroy the Sith with a push of a button at every turn, despite watching cutscenes suggesting I should have a long way to go. When talking about Star Wars video game stories, Knights of the Old Republic is one of the first titles that people think of. This game is remembered more fondly than ever in 2019, as a postmortem for developer BioWare's Anthem continues, and people look back on better days. Truth be told, Knights 1 was a pretty simple RPG compared to their earlier Baldur's Gate games, but it had a very tight, focused story which allowed the Star Wars universe to really shine. You visited multiple planets, embarked on adventures with a wide range of companions, and not many titles immersed you in the Star Wars universe better than this. Fallen Order won't be an RPG, and as far as we know, there's no customizing Cal, your character, but there are many narrative lessons to be learned from Knights, and I mean, I wish BioWare themselves would learn some of these too. They did make this after all. Knights of the Old Republic 1 and 2 do away with black and white scenarios in the Star Wars universe, and I believe it's this innovation which can help the series grow. The Star Wars movies are more focused on the action and the big set pieces, but Star Wars video games are a medium where we can really dive in and learn the intricacies of what's really going on between the Jedi and the Sith, along with the characters within. Think of it like The Sopranos compared to mob movies like Goodfellas. The Sopranos had more time to tell its stories and focused more on the characters rather than only the flashy moments. Video games can be the best of both. Not many games take 2 hours to finish the first time around, unless you count Firewatch, in which case people are probably going to be asking for a refund, especially with that ending. But with how much time we have to tell a story in this medium, there's no excuse for us not to get many different story elements in Fallen Order, and I hope there can be a supporting cast as exciting as the one in the Knights games. Looking at titles not to learn from, I bring up The Force Unleashed once again. For me, it was the first real blip in LucasArts' fine resume, and it is no coincidence that this and its even poorer sequel were basically the end of them. The gameplay just completely undermines anything interesting within the story, with how you're just ridiculously overpowered, all in the name of fun apparently. But it isn't fun. Well, maybe this guy had fun, but yeah.
No fucking way.
When you wreak havoc at every turn, with zero learning or experience required, it makes your enemies look like fools, and in turn, you just get the sense that you haven't earned this power or the ability to destroy all in your path. I've had plenty of fun in games where I eventually become a badass who none can stop, but there was a journey to get there, and that adventure and satisfaction is a huge part of the accomplishments that come with defeating your foes. In a universe like Star Wars, it makes things even worse because it can start to undermine existing characters within. If ridiculously overpowered gameplay is making characters like Luke or Darth Vader look like beginners, you've gotten it completely wrong. Moving back to Fallen Order, combat will likely be a huge focus in the game. There's a lot of rumours floating around, and one of the big ones is that this game may have action combat similar to Sekiro by From Software. It's likely that the combat will have less depth, wanting to ensure people who've just come for the story don't get stuck, but that's fine as long as there's a challenge here for those who want it, and it can be rewarding for those people. In recent times, action games like Assassin's Creed have gotten action combat wrong for me, so I'd love to see Respawn learning from the best, looking to From Software or even a game like Neo. Making lightsaber fights less about button mashing and more about strategy would really raise the stakes and certainly help to immerse people into their role as a Jedi, showing there's more to these duels than just waving your lightsaber around. But how will the rest of the gameplay work? I certainly see wall running making a return like in previous Respawn games, and I do wonder if we'll be getting Uncharted-like set pieces also. This would be quite intriguing, given it wasn't that long ago that Amy Hennig's Star Wars game was cancelled, and that was touted as a story-focused Uncharted-like affair. If we do, and this game is along similar lines, perhaps EA cancelled it feeling one was weaker than the other and that they were both out to achieve similar things, preferring to put all their eggs in one basket. With Chris Avellone on board as a writer, the creator of Planescape Torment and writer on Knights of the Old Republic 2, I do have high hopes for how the narrative will fit around the gameplay. Expectations do need to be realistic here, however, as Chris is a freelancer these days, and it is difficult to figure out sometimes how much influence he actually has on a game. In some titles, he's essential, but in others, more recently, he's just consulted on a few things, but he's basically there to help the marketing campaign. I hope this time around it is the former, because his work on Knights 2 was excellent and brought a unique perspective to the Star Wars universe. I want Fallen Order to be another wake-up call for the industry. If it's quality, I want to see it do well, but that also comes down to how it is released and how monetization is handled. It would just be too good to be true for this game to release at a regular price point as a complete finished game, and for EA to then move on to the next project. They've said all the right things, but knowing them, there has to be more to the story here. Announcing deluxe editions and pre-orders before we've seen any gameplay also rubs me the wrong way, like it did with Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2, and they do need to be careful. If EA wants to win over Star Wars fans, this needs to be a complete game with a clear beginning, middle, and end. They can destroy this goodwill by tying the real ending or key moments to story-based DLC. And look, I have no doubt we'll see DLC, but these should really feel like expansions, separate stories based on different characters and not the conclusion to sequel bait left in the initial game. It's a cliche at this point, but CD Projekt Red handled DLC perfectly in The Witcher 3, because the expansions felt like Geralt was going on standalone adventures rather than wrapping up what was started in the main game. EA need to learn from this, and they need a win with the single-player gaming crowd if they want people to stick around for future installments. Just having an accomplished, respected title could even do wonders for their other franchises also. If they allow Respawn to focus on putting out a great finished product, then series like Battlefield might get a second look from fans who are intrigued by its campaign mode, knowing EA is trying new things. It's not always about milking money off one game, but instead ensuring brand loyalty is there in the future. And I think with the mistakes EA have made in recent past, that should be a priority. I think most of us are skeptical of Fallen Order and would love to laugh at yet another EA mess, but our love for Star Wars video games does outweigh that. There's so much potential here, a fresh slate and a fresh story to grow this universe and ensure these games get back on track. A win for EA and the consumer here would no doubt see other developers like DICE making games in this universe too, and nothing would make me happier than another Star Wars golden age in which we see the series up there as one of gaming's best, rather than just a milked cash cow. EA, use this as an opportunity to show the gaming public that you're about more than just microtransactions and short-term gains. Show that you're serious, as you say, about being both a successful and respected video game publisher, and all demographics of gamers will come to the party, and they will stick around because it's gamers who love quality content who bring the loyalty with them. I hope Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order can be the game we've all been waiting for and bring with it, as cringeworthy as it is to say, a new hope.